made. We shall see what the difficulties are for the United Kingdom, those of a country willing to leave. We're not going to create any difficulty, but these are the consequences of leaving. When one is a member of the EU, one cannot see the benefits of it, but when one is leaving, you can see the disadvantages. Very often I say that it is those who are outside who very much can see the benefits of Europe. There were some questions, for example, regarding Turkey and where they stand geographically, and many discussions about being in or out of Europe. But here we have a concrete example of a country leaving, and now that this decision has been taken, we can very much see what Europe can do and is doing once you no longer have access. So it is for us to demonstrate what Europe can do and can do better and prove it to the countries, I was about to say, which still are in it. Mr. President, sir, along the line of the previous questions, so obviously you very much want to regain the public opinion and their trust. I remember Pascal Lamy saying that trying to get people to fall in love with Europe is as if we tried to get people to fall in love with Frankenstein. I also remember a European roadmap prepared by Daniel Cohn-Bendit and others. So it is about a new roadmap, placing very much democracy at the heart of it, or at least democracy at the heart of the way Europe operates. Do you have leads to that effect? Well, you referred to this initiative, whereas the previous initiative, whereas ours now is very much based on defense and security, growth and jobs, and youth, which are priorities which France has been supporting, including today at this European Council. And of course we insist upon this lack of democracy, because sometimes, however, blaming Europe for the lack of democracy is unfair, given that those who attend the European Council and the members are the process of a democratic, are the outcome of a democratic process of elections. And they're all the institutions playing their own role as well, including in particular as well the national parliaments. But how to make sure that the peoples feel more European? Well, some have said we could launch conventions or some sort of very broad discussions or debates in each country on concrete projects, so that the citizens themselves could make proposals that could then be taken on board as European priorities. Similarly, there will be decisions to be taken, guidelines to be approved within the context of the European Council or by the European Parliament, and we are definitely considering a more consultation. Let me take some examples regarding the TTIP, the trade negotiations between the European Union and the United States. It's been blamed, and rightly so, for lack of transparency. And indeed, there are citizens or groups of citizens who wish, and rightly so, to be represented, because it is a matter, this is relevant to many industries, to the agricultural sector, to the cultural sector, and it is very fair that there should be some discussions and debates, and we cannot proceed without making sure that the citizens are on board. Second example, mentioned yesterday as well, the trade agreement between the European Union and Canada. One solution would be to get the European Council and the Parliament to adopt the treaty with some sort of a joint procedure, and which means that the the question is whether or not the national parliaments should discuss it. I said that I was in favor of this agreement, but I very much want, and I think it is necessary for the national parliaments to discuss it as well. It will take more time, and I'm well aware of the consequences, but this is part of what we shall offer in terms of democratic control. Third example, and last, when we talk about the Eurozone governance, it is also to make sure that national parliaments or a national parliament of the Eurozone within the context of the European Parliament as well can exert some control mechanism. But democracy is not just about referendums, because we can see that a referendum in one country can have so much impact on everyone. So, of course, it's not about prohibiting that kind of consultations, but you cannot just organize a referendum for your own purpose, the purpose of an individual, or for a political project. And I will not comment the British referendum, but back in 2004-2005, another British Prime Minister launched the idea of a referendum, and France did it. So in the end, there was no referendum in the UK, but there was one in France and in the Netherlands, and we've seen the consequences. So before launching a referendum, and people very much have to think carefully about it and what should be the question. I think the only question, as a matter of fact, is do you want to leave or do you want to remain? But we very much need to involve the peoples before that. A question regarding Scotland. We know that the Scottish Prime Minister is in Brussels. She very much would like Scotland to remain in the the European Union. Are you ready? Do you stand ready to support this wish from Scotland? The Scottish Prime Minister will be received. She will be meeting with the European authorities, and of course she is to be listened to. But the discussion between Europe will be with the United Kingdom, and it will be in this context that some solutions which might be relevant to Scotland can take place, but no decision can be made ahead of these negotiations. A question from Hervé Asquin, AFP. What are the concrete projects you would like to support? You mentioned the students and young people. And then a question as to the terror attack in Istanbul yesterday. Do you have any information as to whether or not there are any French victims? Well, regarding the attack in Istanbul, as we speak, sadly, there are already 41 dead, which is huge, as well as many injured. Here again, we received confirmation that there would be 2 French citizens who were slightly injured, but it is too early for me to provide you with any final assessment, because we will have to wait until all the victims have been identified in order to be able to say whether any French citizen was killed in this terrible, heinous attack. We do not have much information at the moment, but we will continue to cooperate with the Turkish authorities in order to assess who is responsible for this attack. We very much can see what they're aiming at in Turkey by striking an airport. The purpose is to impact Turkey's touristic trade. Istanbul is a great touristic destination, with millions of visitors. They've done it in Tunisia, elsewhere. The terrorists are trying to weaken the countries they're targeting. As far as we're concerned, you are aware that we are being extremely vigilant, in particular in the context of the year 2016, and you're aware as well of the huge resources we allocated. We always have to be extremely careful and we maintain a very high level of mobilization of our services. As to the concrete initiatives, well, there is one. Restoring effective control of the borders. And let us talk about the agreement entered into with Turkey. If we wish the Europeans to feel protected while keeping their values of openness, of hospitality, values as well, that guarantee that we can circulate in the European space, then we shall restore all the rules, all the principles of Schengen. But it's not enough to comply with the rules. You have to make sure that they are complied with by others. And one of the French proposals, also supported by our German friends, is to strengthen, and highly so, the border guards and the coast guards. Europe is a continent which should be accessible through conditions, and we need a specific group which already exists but does not have sufficient resources. The same goes for our territorial waters. If you want to prevent these tragedies from happening in the Mediterranean. There's another example which we'll be discussing at the Bratislava summit, and we shall be working on that with our partners, including with Mrs. Merkel. By then, it is the youth initiative. For us, it's very important to make sure that any young European can spend some time either at school, university, or in training in another country, in another European country. It is about generalizing Erasmus, not necessarily in the same format, but to make sure that each young European can have an experience outside his country. Good afternoon, Pascal Richer. The ops. You mentioned the European Parliament and the Eurozone. Can you tell us more about it? And then you talked about social and tax convergence. What about its timeline? What about the timeline for these institutional reforms, given that the only ongoing ones are for the Eurozone? Then, did you get a feeling that Germany was moving, or its positions were changing in this respect? Well, today it was not a meeting of the Eurozone, so it was not the right place to talk about these issues, and I very much wanted us to talk about the relationship with the United Kingdom and the timeline and the priorities. But I had other opportunities, and on a number of times I said what I thought about strengthening not just the Eurozone, but all the monetary policy. And regarding the Eurozone, I said we should have more joint policy, which requires a common governance and not just common rules and procedures. And I said that this should be under the control, well, the European Parliament. It would be difficult, but we would need a Parliament of the Eurozone within the European Parliament. It's not about inventing a new Parliament. As to how to feed a Eurozone budget. Well, first of all, a tax on financial transactions could very much contribute to that budget. and then we can see which decisions could be taken by the member states within the context of the Eurozone governance. Second idea would be a transfer by the Parliament to the Eurozone in order to finance a number of policies. We can see as well what we're doing on climate. Once we have a carbon tax, it could be allocated to the Eurozone. And there are also some other ideas. One by Thierry Breton, which is to build a bridge with the defense effort and see how we can pull together a number of, some defense resources and finance together some military expenditure. I think these are the main ideas. As to the tax and social harmonization, we can see this is a difficulty, let us speak the truth. The best we can do, and we've already achieved progress so far, is to tackle tax fraud, and I can see that we're being more efficient when I look at how much money we're getting thanks to these actions. We also need to work on convergence of VAT rates and tax on consumption. And those who are saying that we should increase VAT rates in France should consider the impact and on the interests of our country. And in any case, that would be very unfair to increase taxes on consumption. As to as to posted workers, France requested that the directive should be reconsidered. As you know, a posted worker is paid in accordance with the rules of the country where he or she works. The same rules apply regarding the number of hours worked, but it is on social contribution that differences remain. So in this respect, we have to harmonize the way we contribute to social protection. It is necessary, even though it will take some time. Germany on Eurozone. Germany is not against any development, and Germany, as a matter of fact, is paying a great deal of attention to us having procedures which allow us to take into account productivity, competitiveness, and not budget issues. So we agree with our German counterpart to look into competitiveness and productivity and improving our productive systems, and including as well work management, but at the same time we need to harmonize. A question from Bloomberg, two questions. You talked about the price to be paid by the United Kingdom further to their choice. You also talk about the relation with the United Kingdom, Hinkley Point and defense matters. So where do you want to set the cursor? Where do you want to set the limit? Where are the red lines? You used to say that finance was your enemy. Yesterday you talk about clearing houses, which are at the heart of the city. You very much pointed at where it hurts. So what is your aim? Do you want these clearing transactions to come back to Europe? Do you want to get back? Do you want to be able to regulate finance on the European territory? What's your purpose? First of all, it will be for the United Kingdom to say, in the context of the negotiation, once they notify the decision to leave, it will be for the United Kingdom to say what is the status they wish to have regarding the European Union. There are different possible options. The first one is that the United Kingdom is a third country which doesn't wish to have access to the internal market, but only wishes to have some trade relations with the European Union, like Canada. We talked about the United States, or it would, as a matter of fact, probably be easier for the United Kingdom, given their presence within the European Union for many years. Second option, the United Kingdom wishes to fully share the rules of the single market, and in the end, they do not wish to be a member, but they want all the consequences, all the rights, all the obligations of the Union. As a matter of fact, the United Kingdom would be in a position where they would no longer be in the Commission, the Council, the European Parliament, but they would be impacted, they would be bound by all the decisions taken by the European institutions. That's an option. Third option, the United Kingdom wishes to select a number of fields of interest and ignore others. Well, this is something to be discussed. It would require something in return. So I'm back to the first question. What does the United Kingdom wish to do? And then we can see what is their involvement in the single market, their contribution to the single market, to Europe and to its competences. Then regarding your question on finance. Finance can hurt itself. I mean, the financial market can hurt themselves. I mean, the system can hurt itself. It's not my speech in Le Bourget which led to the Brexit. I shall admit it modestly. It is a decision taken by the British people. They ask themselves whether or not they should remain in the European Union, and they brought an answer. So far, the situation was the following, and it will continue till the end of the negotiation. So far, the city could lead some transactions in euro, clearing transactions. They could clear euro-denominated trades, euro being the currency, even though the United Kingdom was not in the Eurozone but was a member of the single market. And this in itself was not so obvious. But the United Kingdom, even though outside of the Eurozone, was able to use the euro in their financial, in the city, for these transactions. But once the United Kingdom is out of the Union, and should they be out of the single market at the end of the negotiations, should they so wish, then there is no reason why a country which never was a member of the Eurozone and is no longer a member of the European Union should be able to continue to clear or to conduct transactions in euro. So what about the impact for these transactions? Well, I assume they will be dealt with on European places, but we're not there yet. These are the early days of the process. This is only the beginning of it. But one needs to understand that you cannot keep the acquis. And even liberals should keep in mind that no, they cannot argue that what belongs to us, and what belongs to you should be negotiated. But of course, it is not a matter of revenge or contempt, and we shall keep in mind the interests of both the United Kingdom and the European Union. We shall make sure that the economy is working well and that it can get the proper access to finance, and I very much want the European places, to the markets, to get ready to host some transactions which may no longer be held in the United Kingdom. Mr. President, the Cour des Comptes, the French institution, challenged your budget trajectory. for 2017? Well, it is very much what the Cour des Comptes is about. Their main purpose is to express doubts. And I myself was a member of Cour des Comptes, so I'm very well aware of the philosophy of that institution. It's true that I didn't stay for very long, but as a matter of fact, they doubt, therefore they are. And already last year, Cour des Comptes had in doubt that we could achieve our goals in 2015 when it came to reducing our deficit. But as a matter of fact, we achieved -3% rather compared to 3.8, even though that was the figure we notified to the European Commission. In 2016, we're saying we shall have we shall have 3.3% of deficit compared to national wealth. And the Cour des Comptes is only challenging our ability to reach 2.7% next year, 2.7% of deficit compared to national wealth. If growth is at 1.7% next year, as we expect it to be, and if we continue with our efforts to control our deficit, even though I've made a number of decisions in terms of allocating our resources. But if we're extremely vigilant, extremely strict on our budget, we shall reach that goal. And I hope that next week, Cour des Comptes can confirm that the figure has been met and that they can keep raising doubts for the years after. The question from the Financial Times regarding this somehow unusual or specific situation, the agreement entered into Le Touquet on migration flows. It is somehow unusual to conduct border controls in France. I mean, British border controls in France. Some, including Alain Juppé, challenged the process. Is it going to be reopened? And then a question regarding the Eurozone. In September, in Bratislava, will you discuss reforming the Eurozone, its integration, even though it will be a meeting, an informal meeting of the 27? First of all, the Touquet agreement was entered into in 2010. And of course, it was meant to govern the relation between two neighboring countries, I mean, on both sides of the channel. Given that the United Kingdom was not and still is not in Schengen, it therefore had to be a bilateral process, and it was important to make sure that the individuals who wanted to cross the channel from France would not be in danger, and most importantly, would not arrive in the United Kingdom and be rejected after crossing in very dangerous circumstances. And the risk was that the flow of migrants, of refugees, would keep growing, all of them coming to the north of France, to Calais, without any hope of crossing. This would have led to a terrible humanitarian situation, hence the agreement reached in Le Touquet in 2010. Those who are asking to put an end to that agreement is very much the very same who entered into this agreement. So this is very frequent. I was not aware that Alain Juppé himself took that position, but today, challenging the Touquet agreement because the United Kingdom voted to leave, this would make no sense. What we should look into is how France and the United Kingdom can work better together in order to improve the situation of these migrants, including minors, and we've been working on that, in order to prevent those camps, places which are very much which should have no place in our countries. And let me remind you as well that the United Kingdom is paying substantial contribution to France to that effect, and Prime Minister Cameron had agreed to increase that contribution, and Prime Minister Cameron had also agreed to deal with these minors, those who have relatives in the United Kingdom, so that they would be allowed to reunite with them, and it is a pledge which has been met. I will be seeing David Cameron on the occasion of the commemoration of the Battle of the Somme, and we will be discussing this matter further. And please allow me to say as well that between Minister Cazeneuve and his counterpart, Mrs. May, are working well together. And we've read that she might be running to become the Prime Minister, but I'm well aware that there are some other candidates, or will be. As to the Eurozone, no, it is not a topic for Bratislava. It's a matter of principle, of course. The countries which are not in the Eurozone, and it was very much a claim of the United Kingdom, they all want to know what will happen in the Eurozone. It makes sense, because what is happening in the Eurozone has consequences outside and vice versa. So yes, I could make some proposals, but it's not to be made in Bratislava. It is on the occasion of specific meetings at the Eurozone. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall leave, but rest assured that we'll be seeing each other again.